I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop.
This episode is brought to you by TaxAct. Don't do your taxes alone. Join TaxAct's National Admin Night. Admin nights are social gatherings for getting through your to-do list. So get ready for a night of fun, finding deductions, and filing taxes with TaxAct, where you can file your federal and state return for just $49 through April 8. Let's get together and get them over with. Visit taxact.com/admin-night for details.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Why would I ever have something I wanted to do and not do it? Like if I wanted to go on this trip, so this is the longest road trip you can make in North America, from the southernmost point to the northernmost point. Well, if that's sitting in my head for so many years and I didn't do it, wow, shame on me.
A simple and wonderful reminder to go do the travel thing that you want to do, the thing that's weighing on your mind. For Tom, that was this massive road trip, the longest road trip you can take in the continental U.S., from Key West, Florida to Deadhorse, Alaska, and he shares his adventures in this episode with you today as we continue upgrade your bucket list destination week. Thanks for being here and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey there, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you for allowing me the privilege to bring a little travel into your ears this week. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. And we're road tripping today. I thought it would be good to throw a nice road trip in here. 9,000 miles, this one. No small trip. Road tripping, of course, one of my favorite ways to travel. And Tom is no stranger to road trips. He is pretty well known in the automotive space. He's known as the barn find hunter. He travels around and finds these sort of hidden car collections, these classic cars that are just hanging out in different barns all over the place. He has also traced Route 66 in a 1939 Ford Woody wagon. He has followed the Lincoln Highway coast to coast behind the wheel of a 1926 Model T Ford. The guy has put some miles under his tires, let's say. And so it was really cool to hear his thoughts and perspectives on what is perhaps the most epic American road trip. And along the way, you're going to hear his thoughts and advice on what type of vehicle setup to travel with when you're road tripping on a massive journey like this. How one of the quote-unquote crummy towns he ended up staying in turned into be one of the favorites in terms of destinations for him. And along those lines, stick around on the back end of the interview. I want to share a thought that ties in with that. Just bookmark that, because this is one of those travel reminders. No matter where you're going, you could say this is one of the top things to remember as a traveler. And we all know it, but I think it ties in with that. So anyway, you'll hear a bit of a story from that quote unquote crummy town. You're going to hear about the least impressive spot he visited, which might surprise you, as well as why he hates using a GPS, why he doesn't like doing research before he travels, and a ton more. So let's get into the interview. Quick reminder, first of all, subscribe or follow the podcast if you haven't done that. We're doing 3 episodes a week for the remainder of the year, which is super exciting. And also, I've got a free newsletter, zerototravel.com/newsletter. You can sign up over there and get the new episodes right in your inbox. And that's all I got for you. So I will see you on the other side, my friends. And thanks, and please enjoy my conversation with Tom. Yes, I saw the cover, man. It looks incredible. I mean,
yeah, it was an incredible trip.
America's greatest road trip, Key West to Deadhorse, 9,000 miles across Backroad, USA. I'm going to say Tom Cotter, formally welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend, co-author of this book, right? Or author of this book, and then the photography was done by somebody else?
Yep. This is the 6th book that Michael Allen Ross and I have done together, and my 17th book.
That's crazy. I read that. So you guys almost 9,000 miles together, 8,881 miles, I think it was together.
You got it.
What the hell did you guys talk about the whole time?
You know, that looks like a decent campground. Let's head in that direction. Let's find a coffee shop. That's a beautiful road. When I was driving, you know, he had to come up with the conversation. When he was driving, I was literally sitting in the passenger seat writing, because you can't write a 70,000 word manuscript from memory. You've got to write it in real time. And so I basically wrote it from the passenger seat.
How do you balance that? I was always curious, that line between being present, soaking in the travel experience, whatever's going on, and then documenting it.
Yeah, well, that's why you got to do it in real time. It's the waitress that you interview in Alabama, you're not going to remember her when you're in North Dakota or in Yukon or in Fairbanks, Alaska. So, I mean, wherever I went, it was me, my pen, and my notebook, because, you know, as that person was talking to me, I'm writing notes, I'm getting quotes, Michael's taking pictures, and so it really worked out well. In fact, it is a little bit unusual in that when you're in the middle of a trip like this, you know what, let's take that road over there. I've never been to North Dakota. That's my 50th state. Let's make a hard right and go to North Dakota, whatever. But you can't see the forest for the trees. You're living moment by moment. And only when you write the manuscript and look at it at 2 months after the trip's over, and I called Michael, I said, holy crap, what a trip this was. Like, I got to read it almost as a spectator, because, you know, the guy that did the trip was somebody else. It was me, but it was somebody else. He was in the middle of it. He never saw it. Now I got to see it from 30,000 feet. So a pretty amazing trip.
Speaking of seeing it from 30,000 feet, this has never happened to me, but I went into Google Maps just to look at the visual of the route, plugged in Key West, Florida to Deadhorse. And the Google Maps actually had to zoom out to about 30,000 feet. It actually like zoomed out so you could see the planet, so they could show you the whole route. I'm like, this is a serious road trip when they're actually having to zoom out to show you the whole planet. I mean, how long did it take? How many weeks?
Well, you know, if you MapQuest Key West to Deadhorse, you could do it in about less than 7,000 miles. And you can do it if you were insane and never stopped driving, just continually drove. You could make it there in like 7 days. But you can't write a book about that. And that would be all interstate highways. And so we decided we're going to take all 2-lane roads. And so there was no hurry. The deal was we wanted to see America off the grid. I have this theory that interstate America, that same exit that's in Pennsylvania is the same exit that's in California. You get off and there's an Applebee's and there's a Petco and there was a Walmart Supercenter. You could take that same exit and bring it anywhere across the United States. So it's a generic exit, and that's generic America. We wanted to see a very specific America, the old downtowns, and meet people who are seldom interviewed. people who live 100 miles from the nearest Walmart, and they have to go shopping there once a week. They drive 100 miles in, they shop, and they drive 100 miles home. And those people are pretty cool people.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you initiate those conversations?
I have no problem starting conversations. It's first of all, the Bronco that Ford gave us, it was fully lettered up, so it got attention everywhere. And that's the idea. It's like when we pulled into a gas station, it said Key West to Deadhorse and had graphics all over it, and that's there just to start conversations in campgrounds, at restaurants, rest areas, that kind of thing. And everybody, what are you doing here? Wow, where are you going? And suddenly you tell them a little about your life, and then they tell you a lot about their life, and whether they're driving a truck or riding a BMW adventure motorcycle or whatever, round the world trips. Everybody's got a story to tell.
They do. Yeah. Can you share a couple that really stick with you from the journey?
Yeah. One gentleman who was on a BMW motorcycle. He was on a 4-year trip around the world, and his wife and son were running a business that he had on the island of Powell. And don't remember how to spell that, but it's he had a dive business, a skydiving business. And so they were running that business, and he's on this adventure. And so we're talking. He had just come from Deadhorse. I said, "Where are you going next?" He said, "I'm going to the tip of South America." Really? I said, "I would love to do that trip from the tip of North America to the tip of South America." But I said, "I'm afraid of Central America. I am, drug cartels and kidnappings." And I said, "I'm just not that brave." He said, "You know what? Americans are not that brave." He was originally from Israel, now lives on a South Pacific island. He said, "Americans have so much, yet they're so unwilling to share." And when I travel to places in India and Central America, people that are dead poor, they want to give me whatever they can, because they want me to give them the story of my life, what I'm doing here, and they want to share what they have. And they'll give me the last bit of food for free. It was quite amazing. And so the line that he gave me, which I'll never forget, is, "A tourist needs directions, but a traveler is never lost." And he is a traveler. Wherever he goes, that's where he is. And there's no agenda. When I'm tired of this road, I'll go on that road. It's just an amazing man. So, he gave me lessons at a Chinese restaurant. I saw this adventure motorcycle outside a Chinese restaurant in Yukon, Canada, and he gave me lessons that I'll remember the rest of my life.
Yeah, those are beautiful moments, those interactions. You can read books and you can surf the web and all that stuff, but there's something special about the person-to-person conversation and what you can take away from somebody else's wisdom and their life story. And you never know when it's gonna hit you. Like, those words hit you at a different day, might mean something different. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. So, this is a book that I had in my head for years, and it took several generations of kind of planning for it. Originally, I was going to take a vintage car. I've done a number of travel books. I drove a Model T Ford across the United States. I've driven Route 66 in a 39 Ford Woody wagon. I've done a number of these books. And originally it was going to be a vintage car, or maybe a car I would buy on eBay in Florida and then sell in Alaska, tell the story about the trip and the breakdowns, whatever. And then I said, maybe I shouldn't concentrate on the car in this book. I shouldn't concentrate on the trip, and I shouldn't concentrate on the people. And the car would just be a conveyance to take us from one place to another to meet a different group of people. So Ford loaned us a new Bronco, and Airstream loaned us a new trailer. And that took a little bit of fancy footwork to make that all happen, because I told Ford I had Airstream, I told Airstream I had Ford, and I really had neither.
I like your style, Tom. That's fake it till you make it. That's what that's called.
Well, there's an old race driver who's now deceased, Carroll Shelby. He invented the Cobra, the AC Cobra, because he told AC he had Ford. He told Ford he had AC. I took a page from his songbook. So it was something that we didn't have to worry about breakdowns. We didn't have to worry about, a radiator hose on an old car breaking off, whatever. It's a brand new car. Plus, it was a brand new vehicle that everybody wanted to see. So, Ford loaned us the hottest car that they had a year ago, which was the Ford Bronco, and that was a bit of a challenge because they said, "Look, we don't need publicity for this vehicle. We're already 3 years behind on production on this thing. We have so many people wanting it." So when we went to a gas station, "What, can I see it? I've got one on order. I want to order one for my kid, whatever." So that was kind of cool. So we became spokespersons for not only the Ford brand but also Airstream, because they gave us this 16-foot base camp trailer, a brand new type of trailer that's actually was designed by a BMW designer. And so this very contemporary rig took us from one end of the North America to the other, and it was the way to go.
I should mention, just so people know, you're an expert on cars. I mean, this is something you're obsessed with. You're also known as the Barn Find Hunter. Yeah, you're kind of a YouTube star in a way, right? I mean, you go around and you find these old classic cars that are just sitting around somebody's barn for whatever reason. They spent $48,000 on a car in 1970, and it's just been sitting there. That I can't comprehend. I've read a couple of the stories. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because the focus on the cars, people might be thinking, well, why are they just giving this guy a car? Well, I mean, you've been, like you said, you've written a lot of books and you've done a lot of work in the automotive industry. I was just curious because you have such a wealth of experience with cars and vehicles, and then you have all the travel experience, traveling around and doing these shows and things like that. You mentioned the Airstream and the whole setup you had kind of being a great way to do it. All brands aside, I'm just curious what you learned from traveling through the States with the car trailer combo, because I think that this is something, just going to the nuts and bolts of cars, and I have some travel questions too. This is a big consideration for people when they're thinking about, well, a lot of my audience, they go out and they're traveling for months, or they're becoming nomadic, or they're doing, whatever. And you have the options. You have the RV option, you have the car trailer option, you have the I could drive around and just bring my camping stuff with me option. There's all the van life, the tricked out van thing. I was just curious, like, how did you find the car trailer experience? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Where was it really beneficial in terms of the travel experience?
Well, I had the benefit of not having to have purchased either one of these. So
of course,
I suppose your listeners can look up rental options, but we wanted to kind of remain independent of hotels. And if we found a good place, an interesting place to stay in Montana, cowboy country, that we didn't want to have to leave and drive 75 miles to a hotel, but we wanted to stay right there. And so we had the kind of the flexibility to do that. We would stay in formal campgrounds. We could stay in Walmart parking lots. We might just pull off on the side of the road and stay on a stream. Whenever we decided the day was over, we were ready to set up camp, and that camp, included a campfire, and usually sometimes it was a picnic table, and we would bring out our red wine and our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and that was what dinner was for the night.
Yeah, Michelin star dinner, right?
So it was. I'm really happy we chose this route, because my previous road trips, have been staying in some sort of accommodations, whether it was somebody on Facebook offering us a place to stay in their house for a night, or one guy collected Volkswagen campers and allowed me to camp out in his Volkswagen camper in his backyard overnight, which kind of gave me my Jerry Garcia moment. And, like I got to live the life of a Grateful Dead fan 40 years after the fact. But I'm really happy we chose that, because it did give us the independence to really travel off the grid and meet people and see things that seldom go unseen.
Yeah. You have an interesting career, I'd say. You've been able to combine your love of cars and travel and road trips. Can you share some advice on just that, building a life or a business around something you love? I'm not sure if that was intentional, if it just sort of happened to you. I mean, for you, is it essential to combine work with what you love? So it does not, it's work, but it's, fun and play. I'm just curious of your philosophy on that, how that came together for you, and really just kind of looking for some advice for anybody listening that's interested in, like, what? I have this passion. How can I do some passion mashing, we call it, and
No, I get it. I'm a one-trick pony. I am a car guy through and through. I've never played golf. I've never hunted. I've held a fishing pole twice in my life. I really, I'm the perfect example. If you do one thing, eventually you get it right. And so, whether it was auto racing or the automotive industry, writing about cars, selling cars, repairing cars, I've I've managed to make my life work at every level of that. And other people, they wasted time going to medical school, or they wasted time becoming architects, or you know, uh, builders, or dentists, or whatever. To me, I didn't have that bandwidth. I had my bandwidth was big enough to be a car guy, and I wasn't distracted by other industries, other passions. And I guess I just got into the business at the right time. I know every end of it. I mean, on the manufacturer's end, I had as clients Mercedes-Benz, Ford, uh, BMW, and on the racing side, I've worked in NASCAR, Formula One, IndyCar, motorcycle racing. I've worked by myself on a keyboard in my den, and I owned a company that had 90 employees, and all we did was auto racing. So it's been a wonderful life, and this is kind of now the frosting on the cake, that I can now pick and choose what I want to do as far as projects like this. And I hope I have a few more of them in me.
Who was your role model growing up?
There's a couple of them I have. One, but they're role models, but they're not specifically what I became. Dan Gurney, a race driver. Briggs Cunningham, a race car driver and a builder. My boss at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Humpy Wheeler. These are people that inspired me because they just rose to the top of the heap. They just, like, through hard work and talent and maybe some luck, they just made it. And I said, you know what? If I work hard, maybe I can make it too. And so far, it's working out.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip: hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop.
There's no one like you, and there never will be.
From the producer of Bohemian Rhapsody, there are many legends, but there is only one. Michael, rated PG-13, in theaters April 24.
Now, back to the show. How do you define success for yourself? Is that something you've thought about? Because you can run in that tendency of, oh, I've made it, but now I need more. I got to get to this level, and kind of always chasing the next thing.
I've never kind of been on that treadmill where I had to have some kind of financial reward to prove that I made it. My reward is waking up every day. I'm going to have the best day of my life today, and tomorrow I'm going to have the same feeling. And I promise you that I've never had one moment of depression in my life, because I've surrounded myself with things and activities that I just totally dig. And so, a pot of gold. I've sold a company. I was able to buy a Cobra. That was amazing. But I didn't need that to kind of have as a badge that I made it. If I never owned a Cobra, that would be fine. But I happen to, and that's fine too. So I'm happy wherever. I'm as happy meeting somebody with a rusty piece of junk car in their barn as I am meeting somebody with a brand new Ferrari. In fact, I'm even happier, because my thing is to find the story out about that rusty piece of junk in the barn. It's not just finding the car, it's the story of how it got there. And that's where I've made my living in the most recent years, both on Barn Find Hunter, my YouTube program, and through my books.
Is that an actual intention you say in the morning? Do you actually say to yourself, I'm going to have the best day? Like that?
I mean, because, there's too many people that are taken off this earth before they're ready. And, whether it's through illness or an accident, whatever. And I feel like, wow, if I was taken off this earth tomorrow, I had a pretty good life.
With that intention in mind, just wanting to essentially live every day so you have no regrets.
Exactly. So, a trip like this is, like I said, frosting on the cake. Why would I ever have something I wanted to do and not do it? Like if I wanted to go on this trip, so this is the longest road trip you can make in North America, from the southernmost point to the northernmost point. Well, if that's sitting in my head for so many years and I didn't do it, wow, shame on me. So what my books do and my YouTube programs do, even if your listeners never have the ability to do a trip like this, they can live through my experience. There were two people involved in this trip, myself and my friend Michael Allen Ross, the photographer. But I'd like to bring 1 million people along for the ride. I'd like them to be in the back seat and experience everything we did. So if they can't make it on their own, well, they can jump in the back and join me.
That's one of the things that drives you when you're putting all the work in, because it takes a lot of effort to write a book and piece it together and curate it and take the pictures you want to match and tell the stories. And you must be passionate about storytelling, as you mentioned.
I love storytelling. That's I think if God gave me a talent, it's that through words or through talking, I can tell a pretty good story.
With your program, I know you find cars the old-fashioned way. You like to just show up and ask around, as opposed to doing research or kind of crowdsourcing, which some people do nowadays, particularly for a project like that where you're, filming and all that kind of stuff. I'm guessing that's you kind of take the same mentality to travel as well, to find those hidden treasures of travel. Is it the same way you seek out those hidden treasures as little cars? It's just like show up and ask around kind of thing?
Yep. I mean, I think research takes the spontaneity away from a discovery, whether that discovery is an old car in a building or, what's over that bridge. It's like I try to attack these things in my life like a child, like everything. I'm amazed. I'm happy. And so there's a program that you're probably familiar with called American Pickers. And American Pickers is a show that these two guys go around the country and buy old things in people's barns and their attics or whatever. And these things might be, an old gas pump, a rocking chair, an old sign. It seems to be spontaneous, but it's not. They put out, notices months ahead of time, show us what you've got. You send them pictures of what you got, and everything's negotiated if there's a purchase or whatever, well ahead of time. And then they show up, the lighting's in place.
Yeah. That's reality TV. I'm using air quotes. That's reality TV. It is, right? I mean, that's what they do.
Right. And so my thing is that, I don't want to fall victim to that same, that's not real, it's not real. So I reinforce it over and over to my viewers that, I'm going into a town that I've never been to before. And whether it's writing a book about driving through North America or looking for a rusty Ford Falcon, I don't know. If it's there, I'll find it. Maybe I won't. But it's authentic, I promise you, and it is reality TV.
Do you believe in serendipity?
Yeah, I do. It's if the stars and the moons align, and I was meant to find whatever it is, I'll find it. I feel sure of that. In fact, what I would like to do, and I will still do this. I've talked to my film crew about this. I would like to fly from the East Coast of the United States to the West Coast, and at 33,000 feet, look out the window and see a little town. I have no idea what town it is, and ask the flight attendant, "Excuse me, can you please ask the pilot what town that is?" And she'll come back and say, "Well, that's blah, 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 in Kansas." Then you take a return flight, go to that town in Kansas, and look for cars in that town.
Yeah.
I feel sure I can do that.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of like the real world version of spinning the globe with your finger on it, and wherever it stops, that's where you land.
That's exactly it. So in some ways, this book was very much like that. Is that we had no plan, no agenda. We knew we had about 4 weeks to get from Key West, and there's a place they call the southernmost point. So if you were able to see across the water, you could see Cuba. So that's the southernmost point you can go in the United States. And we knew we had 4 weeks to get to Seattle. Now that trip could be made much faster than that, but what's the hurry? So we knew we had about 4 weeks to get there. Then we took 4 weeks off, and I went home here to Maine and met my film crew, and we did some more episodes for Barn Find Hunter. And Michael went back to California, and he had a bunch of commercial shoots to do, photography for Porsche or whatever. So we drove 4 weeks, we took off 4 weeks, and then we met again in Seattle and drove 4 more weeks up to the top of North America. Yeah. So
that's a nice way to do it, to break it up like that.
So we got to catch up with life. And then we'll see you again in 4 weeks, and we're on the road again.
Right. Like, I'm tired of looking at your face. Let me refresh and let me come back, and we'll work this out.
Yeah. So yes, traveling with somebody in a 16-foot trailer that I'm not emotionally attracted to, that was a bit of a challenge. But so I asked the people at Airstream, I said, can two guys travel in a trailer like this that are not, romantically involved? And she said, well, yeah, but you're going to hate each other. And, thankfully, we didn't hate each other. We're looking forward to doing another book now. So you could make it happen. As
long as you lay off the chili, then you guys are okay, right? No, sorry, I went there. Okay. I'm going to skip over that. And I have a series of questions I'm going to bombard you with, because this is quite a long route, and I wanted to kind of hear some of the highlights. You don't know any of these questions. I'm just going to throw them at you, and give me your gut reaction. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Don't overthink it, but that first thing. Best cup of coffee you had? Where was it?
Well, you know what? We had a series of coffee stops we made along the way. And Michael's got an Instagram post called My Morning Mug, and every day he posts where he gets coffee. So we kind of transferred that to this book. I'd say the single best was the Alaskan Brewing Company in Anchorage. It kind of, because it's not just the product of coffee, which we both love, but it's the environment you walk in. There's an energy in a good coffee shop. It's the music they play. It's the things they have on the wall. And it turns out that the guy who owns this coffee shop, very successful, lives in Hawaii most of the time. He's a Formula One fan, and there were Formula One, posters around inside this building. There were people working on their computers. There were people eating breakfast. They made great pizza at lunch. They had beer at dinner time. We went there several times. So it would be Alaska Brewing Company.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. When you get involved with something, I feel like energetically you just get sucked into these vortex. Like, you guys, of course, you ended up at the coffee shop with the Formula One fan and the Formula One poster. Like, how else? Where else would you end up? That's the magic of the road. All right, best small town. Best is the wrong word, but let's say a standout small town you visited along the way. Just like, wow, this place.
Do I have time to answer this? I mean, are you on a time limit?
Oh, no, we're on a podcast, my friend.
Okay. So
there's no time limit.
If you had a schedule somewhere. We got to a town, going to North Dakota took us kind of off the diagonal track that you would imagine from Florida to Seattle. It took us off there and gave us like this a bump because we traveled out of the way. But once we were up in North Dakota, we took Highway 2, which actually starts in Maine and ends in the state of Washington. It goes all across the United States. It's a little 2-lane highway. We took Highway 2 across North Dakota into Montana, Idaho, Washington. It's the end of the day, and we pulled into a town called Malta, Montana. And there was nothing going on there. I mean, there was an ugly little hotel, which I'm glad I didn't have to stay in. And they rented out campsites out in front. So we rented the campsite, hooked our water up to it, hooked our electricity up to it. Let's walk around town. So we walked into town, and it was dirty and it was depressing. Lots of businesses out of business. It's just, and I told Michael, 20 minutes into our little walk around this little town, I said, I would be so depressed to grow up in a town like this, that as soon as I turned 18, I would be out of here. I told him that exactly. All right. I didn't like the town, but we were there for the night and would just put up with it. Well, the lady at the campground said, the only place in town to get a good meal is this saloon, a real saloon. And, this saloon probably existed where in the old days they would tie their horses up to the front. Well, now there were pickup trucks in the front, and the pickup trucks all had guns, but all the windows were down. I said, what? The windows in the trucks were down and guns were in the roof and the rack. It's like, well, you talk to these people and they have to have guns because there's wolves that might attack their herd of cows or whatever. And wow, so I'm in a real cowboy town. So we sat down at a bar and started talking to people, and they're telling us, when Michael comes into a bar with his camera gear, he puts it on a bunch of cowboys are playing pool and stuff. Who's this guy? So they come and talk to us, and so we talked to a couple of the cowboys, and it seems like everybody was related to everybody. One guy left, another guy came, or that was my cousin, and then he left, another guy came, and that was my cousin. And so a guy comes over from the pool table, and his name was Stephen Johannesson. And he said, I heard you guys want to find out what it's like around here, in Malta, Montana. I said, well, yeah. What's it like living here? And he says, here's my address. And he scribbled it down. Here's my address. Meet me at 7:00 in the morning.
Really?
I want to show you what life is like here. When I MapQuested it, it was 70 miles north. 70 miles north. So that guy lives 70 miles north. So for him to go to a crummy town and drink bad beer and play pool, he had to drive 70 miles south and then 70 miles north again to go home. Wow, that's a commitment. Well, we go up there, and he has the farm literally on the Canadian border. So the edge of his farm, on the other side of the fence, and there's an immigration checkpoint right there as well. Holy mackerel, he's on the top of America, right there. And he said, that's your horse. I said, I don't ride horses. He said, you are today. Really? So I'm involved in a cattle roundup. And a cattle roundup is when all the local farmers come together and help each other. And they have to brand cattle, little calves. And so you got the mamas protecting their babies. You got to separate the mamas from the babies, and they put up fencing, and they have dogs, and they have four-wheelers and horses. And there's 50, 60 people there. And so then they get all the baby calves inside this fenced area, and they have to start. So they hire the local high school football team and cheerleaders to come and pull these calves, and they have to wrestle them to the ground, and they they brand them. They inject them with some kind of medicine to keep them from getting what they said was a bovine version of COVID. They put a tag in their ear, and they castrate them. And wow. So these girls that are doing that, they're good at it, and they're cheerleaders. And I'm saying to myself, boy, if I'm a teenager in Malta, Montana, I'm not sure I want to go out with that girl. Holy mackerel. So so, and I talked to Stephen about, this whole, what it's like living here. And he said, well, I'm divorced, and I have two daughters. They live 75 miles away. And I said, wow, so you live 70 miles from the town that you have to go to drink beer at. And your daughter lives, daughter's ex-wife lives 75 miles away in some other direction. Like, how do you meet a girl here? There's no girls. All there is guys, and they're all related to you. He says, well, the internet has given people who live like I do, far away from everything. They've given us so many options. I have dating apps, for women that are like farmer girls, and so he said, I have a girlfriend 120 miles away, and we see each other every week. I keep up with my daughters on Zoom. I'm able to buy things that people can only buy in the city, through Amazon, and it's given us a way to live a modern life. I said, did you ever want to be anything else in your life than a cowboy? He said, well, yeah, I wanted to be. I used to watch Jacques Cousteau as a kid on television. I wanted to be an underwater diver, a welder. He said, so I went to Chicago. I went to diving school. I went to college. I learned to weld underwater, but I had to come back home because this is the property that my family has owned for hundreds of years. When my great-grandfather came from Norway, he took the train to the end of the line, and then he walked for days to get to his piece of land that he was granted. And it was 600 acres. And it passed down from my great-grandfather to my grandfather to my father, and now it's down to me, and I still work at 600 acres. I love this town. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And I said to myself, Michael, I said, 14 hours ago, I said to myself, I would want to get out of this town and never come back. It's just an ugly, dirty place. And now I'm in love with it. This town suddenly was speaking to me. Like it's not just about the appearances. It's about like a car. If you find a car, it's got a story. This town had a story. And I was able to find, the story within this kind of crusty old town. And Stephen and I have become, online friends. And I look forward to going back up there and seeing him. And that's my horse, and I want to go ride it again. It's an amazing country, and it's an amazing world. And if you just take the time to learn about people like Stephen, you can enjoy that too.
Yeah. Wow. Great story. What a gift too.
I hope that didn't go on too long.
No, that's great. I mean, sometimes it takes the friendly local to open your eyes to the reality of what a place really is, at least through their eyes, or at least give you a different perspective on it. Because oftentimes as travelers, like you said, passing through that town, you're getting the surface level impressions. And when you're traveling on a trip like that, you certainly have a lot to compare it to, right? How do you keep that mindset where you can go fresh and just try to just take it for what it is in the moment and allow these experiences to happen? It's not an easy trick all the time.
Right. Exactly. The vehicle allowed us the conveyance to go from point to point to point, to see and to meet people at different points along the country. If we had a car that was old, let's say I chose a 55 Chevy to drive, well, the car would have become more a part of the story, which would have been that I would have had less time to spend about the scenery and the people. And so I'm glad that we chose this route of it. It's kind of counter to the rest of my books where I've always used an old car to bring us around. And I'm so happy I chose the new car route because I got to meet a guy like Stephen Johannesson, where in fact I might have broken down 20 miles away from there and never met him.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment.
LinkedIn is pretty amazing at helping you grow your small business. We cannot make your email response time faster. We can help you sell, market, and hire in one place. We cannot help you find space for your 3 desk drinks. Why do you have 3? And while we can't help you find the perfect volume for your presentation video, LinkedIn can help you find the perfect audience for your business. Grow your small business on LinkedIn. Learn more at linkedin.com/smallbusiness.
Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teen accounts.
Now, back to the show. Yeah, you can speak from experience having driven some of these, like you said, the Model T across the U.S. and everything. Tom, you would appreciate this because I've done 2. I used to work in promotional marketing, so I do these traveling tours. I did a couple gigs for Purina for the Meow Mix cat food brand. So I drove a a Chevy van, but it looks like a cat because they created these custom fiberglass pieces and put it around it with whiskers
So
and
like
everything.
a Wienermobile
Yeah.
for cats. Yeah.
Yes, it was a Catmobile. It was the Meow Mix Mobile. And so I totally know what you're talking about when the car's the star. I'll never forget going to like the coast out in California and just getting ready to walk out to see that incredible view. And like a whole horde of people just looking back the other way with their back towards the coast. I'm like, this car is not the attraction, folks. Turn around.
Yep.
But you can't help it. I mean, an orange tabby cat going down the street. You know, what are you gonna do? You know, it got me some deals at some places, that's for sure. Like people, cat lovers, are just like, hey, this place is, you know, really expensive, but now it's not because you have that cute cat car. Okay, you can stay here. So there are benefits to traveling in those unique type of car. But I guess if I ever need a deal on like a car, you're going to be the first one I contact because what was the biggest surprise about this trip? Something you didn't expect going into it?
You know, I don't have to tell you how politicized this whole United States is. And you know, everybody's either for or against whatever their neighbor's for. You know, like it doesn't matter. Everything is so opposed to each other. And I was hoping to find off the grid, meeting people that are not near the coasts, that might not be influenced as much by media. I hoped to find a different type of American. And I was happy to find that I did meet that different type of America. I was introduced to people who they had to get the hay cut before the rain started so they could feed their calves, you know, so they had enough hay in the barn to take them through the winter. They were more interested in that than whatever was playing on television that night, on news program. So I was pleasantly surprised that at the end of this trip that there was more that united us in the United States than divided us. I just felt that people that were not influenced as much by what lights them on fire, so to speak, that these are people that had real lives, they had real jobs, they had real responsibilities, and they didn't have a time to spend, you know, with conspiracy theories and things like that. So I was very pleasantly not surprised. I was relieved that was the way most of the people off the grid live. And when I say off the grid, I don't mean literally off the grid. They have telephones and things like that, computers and Wi-Fi. What I mean off the grid is that they live in areas that are not frequently traveled. So, you know, somebody coming through doing a book about their town doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, right.
Another surprise was, okay, I'm a typical American. I love America. All right, I'm going to have to get through Canada. So you go just beyond Seattle and Washington, and then you jump over the border and you're in Vancouver. All right, let me get through British Columbia. Let me get through Yukon. Let me get back to America, which is Alaska. Let me just get through this thing. It's like 2,200 miles. I'll get through as quick as I can. That was the most beautiful part of the trip. What I remotely discounted as a transit zone to get me back to where I wanted to be now has become something that I've told my wife, you know what, I'd like to rent a camper and that you and I would go on an extended time just in British Columbia and Yukon. Oh my God, it's virgin territory. The people are great. The scenery is amazing. The air is clean. The traffic is light. It's wonderful. So one surprise to me was that transit zone turned out to be the most beautiful part of the whole trip.
Wow. We love travel recommendations here, so I would love to hear your top 3 hidden gems that you would say, oh, these places are worth going. Like, these are places I'd want to go back to and that I would recommend other people see.
Okay, well, that would certainly be one of them. And one of them would be, I'm grouping thousands of miles here, but British Columbia, Yukon, beautiful. And I find that a lot of Europeans, I think that, you know, there's going to be a lot of Europeans that are going to aspire to do trips like this, as there were when I did the Route 66 book. It's like people just, you know, sometimes people in Europe see things that we don't see in America. We just take it for granted. So a lot of Europeans come into Canada and go for Alaska from there. And so they already know that that's the best part, but a lot of Americans don't realize that. I'd say another one is, just kind of the middle America, I'm saying, Alabama, Mississippi, that whole, what I call kind of blues territory. This is, where the blues artists live, musicians. And Michael is a musician, and he's looking at a map and he says, "Oh my God, Muscle Shoals. We're coming up on Muscle Shoals." And I'd heard of Muscle Shoals, but it didn't ring a bell. I said, "What's Muscle Shoals?" He said, "That's the recording studio where the Rolling Stones recorded, the Sticky Fingers album." Oh, really? They went to Alabama? So we went to Muscle Shoals, which is that far from Helen Keller's home. Like, Helen Keller lives in one town over from Muscle Shoals. So you got, Helen Keller, deaf, dumb, and blind, and Mick Jagger, kind of in the same neighborhood almost. Muscle Shoals is where, like, music, rock and rollers and blues musicians perform for decades, and they still do. And it's old technology, it's tubes, and this is concrete building that gives out a special vibe. Musicians from around the world come there. You can only find that in this central, United States area. Little gems like that, like the world's largest ball of twine. Like, here's this ball of twine you could actually walk up to and touch. And there's enough twine there to go from like Washington, D.C. to New York City. That's how much twine there is. These little gems, some farmer decided to make a ball of twine. Now it's there. And then finally, the third one would be the final leg between Fairbanks, Alaska and Deadhorse, Alaska. If your listeners have ever watched that show, Ice Road Truckers, that has quite a following on TV. This road is that road, the Dalton Highway. And Ice Road Truckers is filmed in this wintertime when the tundra, and they're driving across lakes and stuff because it's all frozen. Well, we drove it in the summertime, and it's all potholes and dust. And if you want to be lonelier than you've ever been in your life, that's where you go. Because once you leave Fairbanks, it's a 500-mile trip to Deadhorse. And there's only one place in the middle called Coldfoot that you can stop and get fuel. You can spend the night, camp, whatever. You can buy groceries. There's one little place. So from Fairbanks, 250 miles up to Coldfoot, and then 250 miles up to Deadhorse. Lonely, lonely, lonely. And they say, if you have a breakdown, if you have a flat tire, if your car breaks down, if you run off the road and crash, whatever, it's your fault. You didn't take this road seriously enough, So it's an eye opener because you are totally in charge of your life. And if you go off the road into a gully or whatever, that's going to be the end of you. Even if you have something like a breakdown, if your transmission fails, if you don't have extra spare tires and you get a blowout, you could be there for days. Nobody's going to come and save you. It's the loneliest place I've ever been. And it was pretty magical because it's virgin territory, mountains and trees and bear. And look, there's a moose, there's an elk, there's a musk ox. It's pretty special. The least impressive spot on this whole trip was the end of the road. We started at this fabulous place called Key West, Florida. We spent 2 days there experiencing it. At the end, we felt we should spend 2 days at the end of the trip, which was Deadhorse, which is an oil refinery. It's not a town that we know of. There's no children, schools, churches, stores, dogs. There's nothing. This is an industrial complex and muddy roads and big equipment running around. And there's a place, there's a couple of places you can stay as a tourist, but it's not a place you want to go on vacation. I'll tell you that. It's a place you want to go touch it. In my case, I jumped in the Arctic Ocean. I got my polar plunge certificate. You want to turn around and go back because it's just an oily, dirty town. But you know what? It's diametrically opposed to Key West in more ways than one. Not only is it diagonally across the world, so to speak, from Key West, but it's a whole other world. And you know what? I was glad to see it too.
It's really interesting in that moment to reflect back on where you started, that juxtaposition between those two locations is
palm trees
so
to oil
extreme, you know?
palm trees to oil rigs. I never thought about that. You're right.
That says a lot about there's so much diversity across that whole stretch in so many ways. You mentioned the beauty there, even though there was solitude, but there's beauty in solitude as well. But the nature experiences or some of the nature you saw along the way, I was just curious, was there a standout destination that caught you in terms of the nature experience?
Well, Deadhorse was interesting in that, musk oxes, which, if as I was described to you, would be like a bull with long hair, real long hair. Well, they lived there long before the oil companies took root there. So you wake up in the morning and you walk out to your parking lot and there's a musk ox leaning against the building sleeping. Wow. So this is where man, machine, and nature have to get along. The most surprising part of the trip was in the middle of, Yukon. And we're on a dirt roads. The Alaska highway is dirt. It was okay. And we're hungry. So there's like a little general store. Now, you might go hours without seeing any kind of commercial establishments at all. No houses, nothing. We pull in for lunch. Well, the only thing they had for lunch are those hot dogs that roll on those rollers all day long. Stale buns. So we had an option of one, a hot dog. And so we had it. So we're eating our hot dogs, and there's a woman and a man, or a young man. I started talking to them. They had their bicycles there. And it was a mother and son from Montana, and they were riding their bicycles from southern Montana to Deadhorse and then down to Anchorage over the course of the summer. Holy mackerel. So they had already done Route 66. They'd already done a lap around the Great Lakes on previous trips. The son was autistic, and so this was, a way for him to experience the world. It was a beautiful thing. And so we spent a lot of time talking to them. We're in the middle of nowhere. They say there were 100 people and 1,000 bison that live within 20 miles of this place. And there's a guy standing over on the side. So I'm talking to her and I'm interviewing them, whatever, and I say goodbye. And this guy came over to me. I'm in the middle of nowhere on a dirt road. He says, "You the barn find hunter?" I said, "How'd you know?" He said, "Man, my son and I watch your show all the time." I said, "Wow, really?" I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "From New Jersey." And he's on a Harley Davidson. So there's motorcycles on the Alcan Highway are making this big trip like this up to Deadhorse. Motorcycles are all over the place, but they're usually KTMs, BMWs, they're adventure bikes. But this guy and his two friends who live in New Jersey got in their full-dress Harley Davidsons, and they told their wives, "Okay, well, we'll be back when we're done." And they rode these Harleys all the way up to Deadhorse, and we met them on the way back. And, the saddlebags are dripping with mud and stuff. And these guys were so happy. Like, they're going back to New Jersey. Like, wow. Pretty cool. So what that does is it tells me that your audience can take any kind of vehicle. You don't have to have a special Bronco and a trailer or an adventure bike. You could get on your Harley Davidson or, in your Volkswagen Jetta, and you could do a version of this same adventure. It doesn't take anything except the desire to see something new.
And maybe a spare tire or two on that one stretch, right?
You want to do that.
A little bit of car knowledge, make sure the oil's all good and everything.
Yep.
What is your best road trip advice? Just general road trip advice, or something that's maybe it's less obvious. You've done a lot of road tripping for your YouTube series. You've done this trip. I mean, you've done a lot of road tripping. What is the advice you have for making a great road trip?
I'm a bit of a Luddite, as you can probably realize, trying to hook up to this broadcast with you. I like old-fashioned things. I like old-fashioned cars. So this little device, my phone, I can find my way anywhere in the world with that GPS. It tells me how to get there, but it doesn't tell me where I am. I love atlases. Give me an atlas. It shows me where I am, where I'm going, what I'm going through, what I'm going past. Maybe I want to take a side trip. a GPS doesn't allow you to see, oh, this interesting side trip over here, there's a scenic view, whatever. It just gets you from start to finish. But a map allows you to see where you're going. Sometimes I bring an atlas with me when I fly across the United States, just so okay, I know that what town that is, that's the road, that's Interstate 40, whatever. An atlas is a beautiful thing. And so for someone like me, it's the Bible of travel. And I have a well-worn one sitting in my back in my pickup truck because I survive with atlases. I love them.
Love it. That's great advice. The book, we should mention it again, America's Greatest Road Trip, Key West to Deadhorse, 9,000 miles across Backroad, USA. Yeah, Tom, do you have any other places you want people to check you out, or share whatever you want here?
Well, let's see. The book is now available. I think it hit warehouses last week. It would be an ideal Christmas present. So that's the timing of this. Like, we had to get it done so we could make it for Christmas 2023. I love to do talks about this. So they keep an eye on me. Sometimes Hagerty, who employs me to do their Barn Find Hunter series, sends me around the country and I give talks. Go to Amazon to buy the book, or go to motorbooks.com to buy the book, or my preference is go to your local independent bookstore, because those stores are surviving by the skin of their teeth. If you buy this book from Amazon, Jeff Bezos will never know you made the purchase. But if you buy this book from a local Main Street independent bookstore, the owner will thank you for it, because you're helping keep that place alive. So buy it any way you want, because I think it's a good book. It's a good read. But if you can make somebody's life a little bit better by that purchase, by buying it from a local independent small bookstore, please do that.
Love it. Love it. That's a great place to end. Thank you so much for your time.
It was a blast, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much once again to Tom Cotter for stopping by the show and sharing his adventures on that road trip, epic road trip. I wonder, what is the longest road trip you've taken? I was trying to think of that myself. I did drive straight across the country once over 5 days, but that was just I had to get the vehicle from San Francisco to New York, and I've done a lot of cross-country trips like that. Are those the longest? I don't know. I got to rack my brain. Anyway, if you want to share your longest road trip or a story, or you just want to check in or say hi, I invite you to get in touch and make this a two-way conversation, please, because this is a community-powered show. I make this show for you. Jason at zerototravel.com is my email. I got a link to my voicemail box here in the show notes. And always invite you to get in touch. It would be lovely to hear from you. Thank you to everybody who has been getting in touch. And just shout out for spending time this week on this Upgrade Your Bucket List Destinations themed week. I hope you enjoyed it. Doesn't mean we're not going to be talking about destinations at all in the coming episodes, but I just thought it would be fun to theme out one of these weeks. I got another themed week coming later on, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to leave you with a quote in just a moment from one of the road trip kings, at least in pop culture. He may be recognized as one of the road trip kings, Mr. Jack Kerouac. First, what I said at the top, tying in with that story that Tom told about how that crummy town that he referred to when he was there and just kind of, didn't think it was anything special. And then it really came to life for him. And this is a reminder, just the thing that popped to my head. The number one thing we always should keep in mind as travelers, wherever we are, if we're down, if we think a place is crappy, it's all about the people, isn't it? When it comes down to it, isn't it really all about the people? And when you can be in one of those ho-hum destinations, did I say that? I never said that in my life. A ho-hum destination. When you're in a ho-hum destination, you meet the right person and they show you a good time. They give you an insight into their life. I've been invited into people's homes or taken around or shown spots that I never would have found on my own. I'm just having this montage of memories kind of enter my brain as I talk to you. It just makes the place so special. Really, it is really about the people. So let's just keep that in mind as we're out there roaming, traveling, going about our day, even locally. It's just one person can really brighten your day and make a place. And, you know, the other thing that's beautiful is you can be that person wherever you live to somebody else. And that's such a gorgeous thing. So just wanted to wrap up with that and this quote from Jack Kerouac, who said, "Live, travel, adventure, bless, and don't be sorry." Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.